Okay, Nelson.
Welcome back here. Okay, welcome to Family Life, another exciting series. In October, we're going to deal with um, our elders in our community. They deserve the respect, they deserve the help. One interesting thing about life is that we will all grow one day. We don't get younger, we get older. And the way we treat our older population and generation is an indication of what we are expecting. And because we are expecting great things, we have to treat them in a very great way. In this first segment, we're going to deal with elder abuse. And we have two wonderful people here. The first one is Michelle McFadden, all the way from New Hampshire. Michelle has been a nurse for 31 years and has two children. Kathleen, the youngest one, lives in Alaska. I hear there's good fish in Alaska. And Beth lives in Pennsylvania with her husband. Michelle has worked in labor, has worked in delivery, has worked in pediatrics, and now geriatric. She was a visiting nurse. She's a visiting nurse for the last 10 years in a long-term care facility. As a matter of fact, she is a manager of a unit there. She also volunteers with the American Red Cross and work on national disasters. That's a lot of experience. We have also with us.
I'm one of those elders you're talking about.
We have also with us Reverend Beverly and Henry, financial security advisor, and also a retirement investment planner. She's an entrepreneur, a speaker, conference host, and a member of the clergy. Reverend Henry has a background in teaching, community development, banking, taxes, and estate planning. She's the past chair of the Church of God Eastern Canada and the Canadian representative to Ministries Council for Church of God USA and Canada. As an ordained minister, she began her work in financial services when she was instructed by God through prayer. She's in love with the work that she does. She gets great joy watching the people she works with accomplishing their financial goals. She strongly believes in giving back and reaching forward to support community health and wellness. She does this through her volunteer service at agencies like United Way of Pioneer Village, the Interim Place, the ACCN, and several non-for-profit and charitable organizations in Canada and the United States. Her work is not just limited to um, peer facilitator for the Her Life, Her Canvas program for women in domestic abuse. She does educational seminars, lunch and lean workshops. She also does seminars for financial literacy, money management retreats for community groups, schools, churches. She also deals with community income tax clinics in association with the Canada Revenue Agency. I think what is important to her is that she enjoys theater and loves performing when she's not working. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Well, when
Thank
it comes
you.
to elder abuse, from the biblical context and from where I sit as a pastor, I believe strongly that God wants us to treat the elderly right. There is a verse in scripture which is First Timothy chapter 5 and verse 8 says, "But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for the members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever." God wants us to take care of our own, especially those who cannot help themselves. It's interesting how the curve of life goes. You're a child, you need to be fed, they put diapers on you, you learn to walk, you grow up, you become strong. But then the end of your life, it begins right from you, like where you began. You are fed, your diapers are put on you, you are held to walk. That's how life is. And if we understand the curve of life, we'll be careful of how we treat those who need us most, the elderly in our community. In Canada, I'll give you a little bit of stats concerning the elderly population here. The number of persons aged 65 years and older as of July 1st, 2020, were 6.8 million. 6.8 million. Our population is about 35 million, and 6.8 million were elderly folk. The number of centenarians we have, those over 100 years, we have over 11,000. And I hear the percentage is going to be even wider because 17.5% of Canadians are seniors, and it's going to increase over the years. Elder abuse has been a problem, and it's a problem we have to deal with. We have to face it head on. We cannot be ostriches and behave as if it doesn't concern us. This is us. It shows the type of people, the community, the society we are, if we are neglecting those who stood and worked and built this nation for us. I think it speaks a lot. Any nation that takes care of its elderly, I believe strongly, is a blessed nation. So I'll go first to Michelle and ask this question. So, what is elder abuse?
Elder abuse, the federal government, the United States federal government, has several definitions. It can be verbal, sexual, physical, mental, injuries of an unknown source, involuntary seclusion, misappropriation of patient's property, mistreatment, and neglect has been defined by the federal government. So I always like to say, when you get that little feeling on the back of your neck that something's just not right,
Mm-hmm.
it's worth taking a look at.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Um, what do you say about elderly abuse, Reverend Bev?
I do agree with Michelle. Elder abuse is something, and with you as well. Elder abuse is something that we need to become very involved in preventing and supporting those who are victims of the abuse. Because the fact of life is, had it not been for the elders, we wouldn't be here today. They gave their lives in many different ways so that we could enjoy privileges and a quality of life that we probably would not without them. So it is a very, very important thing for us to address. I'm glad we're doing that this evening.
Awesome. How widespread is this, Rev Bev?
Well, it's very widespread, very widespread. And the reality of it is that we tend to minimize. I don't know for Michelle and for yourselves, but oftentimes we would hear an elder person saying something as if, I didn't get my lunch today, or something like that, and we play it down. We're not recognizing that's a sign, like Michelle says, something probably is not right. And we should take more time and interest to look into what's going on and not shrug it off.
So,
I may ask before we go further. Um, so, who do we define as an elder? Senior? What is the area? What is the covering?
Okay, very good question. Because abuse is experienced by so many. However, for the context of this session, elder, senior in Canadian context is from age 55 and up. That's the official demographic, 55 plus.
Which means you're an elder.
I, I don't know yet. My wife is defining me as a senior. I will think about it,
I'll make sure I don't abuse you.
but, but well, it's interesting to know. Now, Michelle, you made mention of so many areas where you can classify as abuse. Is it that people don't know, or we don't take it serious, or it's just something we overlook? That's why it is so widespread, this abuse.
Well, I think that we find it distasteful to think that a child would abuse a parent, or that a worker in a facility would abuse a parent. So I think that we tend to not always recognize it in our own home. Um, it's hard. It's very hard. It's very hard taking care of the elderly. It's hard work. When they, if somebody becomes repetitious and you're answering the same question 82 times and it comes out again, it's very easy to snap a little, but we have to be careful.
Wow.
If I could add
Yes,
to
you
that,
could. Mhm.
I think Michelle is touching on why does it happen? Because usually we get to the cause of something in order to help to prevent it, and she's right. Elder abuse has been going on for quite a while, but especially in today's environment, we're living longer.
Mm.
And we're not necessarily having a better quality of life. Life is extended, but health is not necessarily optimum. And so it's a strain on family members in order to provide care for their elders. And they have their own issues in their own families, and you have sandwich families. So you're taking care of your elder, your mother, your father, and you're taking care of your
spouses.
spouses. I didn't say it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And your children. And so you're sandwiched in between, and there's no time for you. And sometimes families are facing their own economic challenges, housing, so many day-to-day factors that bears a weight emotionally, psychologically, physically. And so oftentimes by the time your older adult person is, as Michelle said, not understanding, and they should, you have come to the end of your rope.
Mm.
And so it's just an emotional stress for you to be able to contend with that person who should, in your reasoning, know differently and behave differently.
So if I ask, Michelle touched on family members, maybe children, but can we define who the abusers are? I believe it can go beyond even a family member abusing an elderly person. So is the spectrum bigger than just family members?
That's a very unique question, and I'm glad I'm getting to answer it because I don't know what you see, Michelle, in your environment and with individuals that you interact with. But the irony is that you ask if the spectrum goes outside of family members. The fact is, the greater amount of elder abuse comes from family members. Yes, children or spouses. That's where most elder abuse comes from.
And Michelle, at the facility, is it rampant or is controlled? Does it even happen?
Um, I hate to say there have been times, but it's investigated immediately. Staff members are removed from the facility immediately while the investigation goes on. So any report is taken extremely seriously and has to be reported to the state. We're under the requirement of reporting it to the state also. So it's taken very seriously. And there's training too, to help everybody recognize what may be going on. We are
If it
very
happens,
lucky.
yeah. If it happens in the facility, what type of abuses have you heard of or seen in your facility?
Um, I won't pick on mine in particular, but it could be somebody being rough with
Hmm.
somebody during care.
Hmm.
It could be locking, putting the locks on the wheelchair and restricting movement of a patient. Um, it could be not doing care at all.
Hmm.
It runs the gamut the same way it would at home.
Well,
Shutting
that would be a,
the door of their room.
mhm. There will be a fine line there then, because if I am restricting an elderly person from leaving their room because they could be harmed, could that be construed as abuse?
It is a very fine line, and in these times of COVID, it can become even more blurred. Um, they have the right to, normally, they have the right to move around as they will. We need to restrict people to their rooms because of the virus, and we're following state guidelines. So I think that's where it changes a little bit, is that we are following the guidelines being sent to us by the state under these conditions.
Interesting. Under what
But normally,
conditions,
Wanted to leave, yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Go.
Normally, if they wanted to leave their room and we restricted it, it would be abuse.
Wow. Interesting.
I know that a friend of mine taking care of seniors in Germany tells me that um, in trying to give them freedom, not to be seen that you are restricting them, they have the rule where you can just open the door for them, or they can just get out of the facility and you cannot restrict them. But what happens as well is you don't restrict them because the law says allow them to go anywhere they want to go. They can step out of the facility anytime they want to step out. And sometimes they are met with harsher, demands outside of the facility. But just because people are following the rules and allowing the seniors freedom, they step out there. Sometimes it's cold. Sometimes they are not properly dressed because they have the liberty to walk out anytime they want to walk out of the building, and you are not supposed to restrict them. But then they go out there and they are faced with greater greater demands out there. So sometimes balancing some of these regulations as well it becomes very challenging because people don't want to be deemed you are restricting the seniors, so they allow them to do whatever they want to do. I'm not talking about Canada or America, but this is an example somebody gave me from Germany. And so sometimes it's a challenge trying to follow the rules when the rules itself can become the trouble for the senior. That thought just came into my mind. But my question to Pastor Bev will be in the Canadian context, where I've seen few news items where some relatives have put camera in the rooms of their parents living in the senior home or facility, where it has caught employees literally sometimes slapping and hitting and or stealing from the person's purse or something. Is it something that is rampant in the society, or these are one of the exceptions?
Unfortunately, I wouldn't say it's an exception. I don't have facts, data to, respond to the question, but I do know from involvement in the community and working with elders that it's something that gets done because families are concerned. We have heard since COVID what the report has been with the breakout and the elderly being the most vulnerable. And so families are very, very concerned. And so they're taking measures, not necessarily being familiar with the codes and the regulatory laws that surrounds how you do that. But yes, it does happen.
This question is another unique one. From your own experience, Reverend Henry, would it be better to keep the seniors at home or a facility? Where would they be safer? Because if most abuse happens with family members, I'm beginning to think now.
Okay. That's a catch-22 for the person, truly. Yes. However, we have to be you read in the Bible, the quote from the Bible that it is required of us that we take care of our families. And so it's prudent on us to do what is best in their best interest. So you start possibly from getting assessment, or if you yourself personally, the caregiver, recognize that this is just something you're not at this point able to. You may want to, but you shouldn't be doing it because you feel guilty into doing it, because that in itself becomes a situation where abuse does and can happen.
Okay, so that same question to you, Michelle. What do you think? Is it better for the elderly to be at home or it to be safer in a facility which is regulated?
I think that that's an it's a decision that needs to be made individually for each person. I think that it's very easy to say people should be home with their families, but we're all under a great deal of stress these days. And home may not be the best place. So I think you have to be very careful in choosing and making that decision, but the decision should be based on what's best for all of you. And if some people are overwhelmed, it's okay to go to a facility. Not everybody can care for people in their home. Not everybody's a born caregiver.
Well, I've told my children that my care home is their home. And I've given the rules already. I don't clean, I don't wash dishes, I don't make beds. All the things I did for them when I was a kid, they were kids, they're going to do for me. And I'm not going to leave with one of them. I have three of them for a long time. It's a 6 months holiday with my wife. We come and spoil our grandchildren and leave a little bit of debt for you, and we move to the other one. I like the home, the family home. I don't like the facility. But I appreciate what both of you said, because sometimes home itself could be where the problem is.
And if I could add to
Well,
what you're
and if you
saying,
have somebody with dementia who is getting up and wandering, I may not have the ability to have eyes on them 24 hours a day. And a facility may be safer where they are able to move around more. There's staff there 24 hours a day. There's many conditions. I think this is the other thing. It depends upon the health conditions that we're talking about. Um, and it may be that a facility is necessary because of the required medical attention that's needed.
Pastor Bear wanted to say something.
you're right, I agree with Michelle, and sometimes a compromise can be made. You want to be at home, but your health does not make it convenient for your family member to be 24/7 taking care of you. So if there are preparations made where there can be some provider that is involved in the process, perhaps on a part-time basis, perhaps they have to live with you. And as Michelle said, the home doesn't always lend itself to that convenience because you have to have living quarters for that person, and it takes on a whole nother dynamics. And one last thing on that, you mentioned taking turns with the children. Quite often, that's one of the first area where the abuse begin.
Then I will stay home with my wife.
Yes, I see it in person because the siblings begin to think, okay, you're the favorite. He spends more time with you, or when he's with you, and they begin to, among themselves, have heated conversation and resentment. So we have to be very aware of all the other unseen that contributes
Mm, mm.
to elder abuse. And
Wow.
so they don't involve themselves anymore if the time comes when you need care. That one child is left with the burden of caring, and resentment builds up. So it's a cycle. Yes.
Very interesting.
So my question is actually in terms of finances. If maybe the ideal thing is for the parent to be in the facility, but you can't afford it. Maybe in the best interest is for the person to be in the facility. You can't afford it. Or you want to keep the parent in the house and at home, but you can't afford the care to come in. What are the options?
So again, here in Canada, there are programs, and planning is so important. Things have to be planned in advance so that when the time comes, you plan for the worst and hope for the best. So there are situations where you have home care funds that you set up, long-term care provision that you put in place. There are insurances and different vehicles that gives access to those because it is costly to be in a long-term care facility or a retirement home. Very costly. Yes.
I guess in the next 2 weeks or so, we are bringing you back to really dive into actually planning for retirement and some of the things that we can even put in place
Ahead of time.
Yeah. To make that stage of life much more,
Yes.
better to manage when we get to that age. So watch this space. In 2 weeks' time. We'll bring Pastor Bev back again to address some of the things we can all put in place to help us retire comfortably and for our family members to be able to take care of us in a better way when we are grown.
Because if I may just quickly interject here, as you're referencing that, one of the areas where abuse happens is in the finances. In response to the question you asked about not being able to afford, so you cannot afford it, your parents have a home, and before you know it, decisions are being made, the house gets sold, the family has squabbles, and it gets ugly, very ugly. And so, again, as we referenced and we inferred, it's better to prevent than try to cure. Yes.
Okay, amazing. Michelle, this one goes to you. What are the telltale signs that an elderly person is being abused?
I would I would consider any unexplained injuries, bruises, um, crying. If somebody's less verbal, um, I would increased agitation for again somebody who may be less verbal, and for people who are verbal, the expression of she hurt me or he hurt me or he did this, um, and watching, paying attention to family interactions. When mom goes out for the afternoon, how is she when she comes back? She may be
Okay,
very quiet. It can run the whole gamut, the same way it does with any sort of abuse. It can run the whole gamut.
okay. I will come back to you with the same question, but in your facility where you have um, uh, elderly people with dementia and Alzheimer's, how do you know that what they are saying also is true? Because if they are not really cognizant of things around them, how?
You take every verbalization as truth and you
Okay,
investigate it.
all right.
Everything is
So,
investigated.
okay, I like that. So, whatever you hear, investigate. Don't just assume it.
Yeah,
And
right.
Michelle, one question to you as well. One of the types of abuse that you listed was sexual. How does that play in that scenario?
Well, thankfully, I have never seen nor heard nor been part of that. But the same way, you know, people are sexually abused in younger years, it does happen with the elderly also. Caregivers um, can be sexually abusive. Um, and it gets into very kind of gray terms as far as um, relationships within facilities too. Are people able to consent to sexual relationships, it can get very gray.
Okay. So, Beverly, it's the same question to you. Um, what are the signs that a senior is being abused?
Echoing Michelle, nonverbal response, afraid to talk, especially if that was a person who was very verbal and suddenly they're just withdrawn. That should be queried. You should check to find out, why is mom so quiet? How come she's not interacting with us as she used to do? As well as if she keeps asking certain, mom or dad keeps asking certain questions about certain things. Where's my mail from that I used to get from? Because this is a way that abuse happens. We withhold mail from them because those documents have documents that we want to lay our hands on. And so we deny them access to important pieces of mail. So that's a sign. And just everything and anything different, and wherever you see a change in the behavior and the attitude of your individual family member, it should be a clue that perhaps I need to see why they're behaving this way. They're not eating as they usually eat, or I don't want that because they may had a bad experience when that was prepared and they didn't like it. And so just general, everyday, common, obvious signs.
We're soon going to go for break, but tell us, why is elder abuse so bad, Reverend Bev?
Like I said before, why does elder abuse happen? One of the cause is the stress that we're all living under. In my culture, where I came from, in the islands, you have extended families. And so the support system is so much more readily available. In today's society, it's not like that. Families are nuclear. Mom, dad, the kids. So now mom has gotten older and there is no community around me as the kid, and I am suddenly faced with this responsibility plus my own personal life. So that's one of the things. Another reason in the area where I focus often with financial abuse is because of the gain to the family member. The money that mom is saving and I need to get access to it. So there are so many different reasons. And one thing about the healthcare system, the facility, is that I have heard stories, I have not myself witnessed, but care workers, they would snuggle up in bed with the elderly in the pretense that they're there to comfort and to console, and yes, so it happens so discreetly that you wouldn't necessarily think an abuse is happening, but it happens.
Wow, it's getting more and more interesting. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about how to prevent these abuses. Don't go away, stay tuned. We will be back soon. Welcome back. Welcome back. We were having such a wonderful discussion earlier on with Michelle and Reverend Bev. It's been amazing. And as we went for break, as we told you, we're coming back to deal with the prevention of elder abuse. We have with us Mrs. Lorena Brown Mensah, who is a graduate of Sheridan College. She did accounting, and then she's been in the corporate world for over 10 years in the accounting department for companies such as Brink, R.R. Donnelly, and Modis. She's a mother of 4, going 5. Yeah. Um, she also is an entrepreneur, he's been working for herself since she left the corporate world. Lorena is a realtor, the owner of Easy Cleaning Service. It's a residential and commercial cleaning service in Brampton, Ontario, and also the founder of Independent Senior Living, a foundation which aims at helping seniors to live independently at home for as long as they choose. Can you write my name in your foundation? I want to leave home as long as I choose. Lorena, what gave you this interest in senior living?
Actually, it was an accident. Just had an encounter with a senior citizen at home on one winter day, and there was snow outside, and he lived on his own, and he was out in the snow trying to shovel the snow. So my daughter and I, we actually saw him and stopped and helped out. And as I was driving home, it just kind of dropped in my spirit. There's a lot of more seniors living at home like this, and they're strong enough to be on their own, but they could use some help. So I just followed through and decided to do the foundation where we can reach out and give them any kind of help that we can, so they can stay on their own. Part of the prevention that we're talking about, because if they're able to be independent, then it can be one of the prevention tools that we can put in place, from stopping abuse to seniors. So that's why
As long
that can,
as they
as long
choose.
as they
I like
choose.
that
That's
portion.
it.
So you put my name down, did you?
It will be in
I've
there.
chosen.
Okay, then.
Right.
Definitely.
So we're going to deal with abuse, the
Right.
prevention of abuse. Uh, I listened carefully to our previous panelists,
Right.
and it seems that you really have to take your time to find out. It doesn't just happen by chance. You have to observe, see what is going on around you to see that these seniors are being abused. It seems Michelle mentioned it, Reverend Bev also mentioned it. So, how do I do this to make sure that I know and don't take it for granted that a senior is being abused?
Right. So one of the major things that we have to really do is education. We need to educate the public and also seniors themselves, so they know the telltale signs of what abuse is. Senior abuse is one of these crimes that happens that are underreported, so they're not reporting most. So when you do your research and you look at the data, you find out there really isn't a lot to go on, because a lot of the times the seniors themselves don't know what's happening. They don't even have a name for it. And sometimes you can name something if you know what it is, right? So they don't know that what I'm experiencing, this is abuse. And also it's coming from someone that they know, a family member, so it is very hard to say something when you know that in turn it might get this person in trouble, right? Because remember, we're talking about children or spouses. This is your child. And so if you know that by saying something, it's going to get them in trouble, or they're going to have to face the law for it. A lot of the time the seniors don't want to report on it because they still trying to protect the abuser. So it is very hard to collect data, but one of the things we can do is to educate people, raise awareness. There isn't a lot of awareness out there about senior abuse, what it is, how to look for it, what you should do if you know someone that's going through this. What are you supposed to do? And so sometimes people don't know what to do. But I feel like if we do that, then we can basically prepare people for this.
So you are all for education.
Yes.
Educate the public, educate the seniors,
Yes.
let them know what abuse is and what it looks like, what it smells like.
Definitely.
All right, Michelle, in a facility like yours, what is it, what do you put in place to prevent such abuses? Well, I think your volume is muted.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. We have training every year that is mandatory for staff to take. Again, we do investigations. We have conversations if you're not sure if something is abuse or not. Um, you have a conversation with people, and education, like she said, is just the best way of handling it.
Yes. What are some of the things you do to prevent, apart from education, what are some of the things you do to prevent elder abuse, Lorena?
So that's one of the things I first spoke about. Teaching the seniors to know their right and also helping them live as long as they possibly can on their own independently, right? Some of the things that can be done is helping families find ways to de-stress, um, directing families to ask for help when they feel like they need it, because sometimes that's one of the hardest things for people to do, is to reach out and say, this is what I'm facing, so I need this kind of help. And so putting the resources readily available for people to be able to tap into it when they need it, so then they know when they've reached that limit exactly what they need to do.
Wow. Other things you do in your facility that prevents abuse, Michelle?
You have staff, if you notice staff is getting stressed out, um, take a quick break, walk around the building, change your assignment because it can get fatiguing. So, go to a friend and say, look, I really can't take care of Mary Smith today. I've just had enough. So can you take her? And swap assignments and make changes like that.
You are allowed to do that.
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's
Yes.
awesome. That's awesome.
That
In
helps a
fact, it's
lot.
better if you do because at least you're saying, I need a break. It's okay to
Mhm.
say, I need a break.
Wow. And we are not penalized for saying, I can do this at this moment.
No,
Wonderful to know.
no.
Um, go
If
ahead.
I may add quickly also, I know to preventing it, they mentioned it before, but being proactive in investigating any claim that the seniors make, some of the things that you can watch for. I mean, if you know someone and all of a sudden they're changing their wills or changing names on banking informations and putting a certain person, that should be a red flag, right? for you to also want to question if someone's coming in and withdrawing all equity in their homes and putting it under somebody's name. That's something. Another thing that we also don't talk is the neglect, right? They're neglected a lot, and so what does that look like? If you have a senior, you visit them, you notice there's no food, or it looks like things have been sitting there not cleaned, they look dirty, they're not cared for. That's neglect, right? So these are some of the things that we can watch out for. These are some of the things that we can maybe nudge somebody about, so they can start looking into it. We have to be proactive because, like we said, it's not like all the other abuse where there's information 24-hour helpline. It doesn't happen like that with senior abuse. So up until all these are put in place to help, I think that everyone, the families, the public, everyone involved have to actually be active in coming together so we can solve this because it definitely is a pandemic.
I remember when you told me the story when you saw that senior that was shoveling the snow, and you and your daughter were coming from grocery or something, and you passed by, and then you are having that strong edge to go back and help the senior to just shovel the snow. And it kept me wondering, as a community, I think Reverend Bev mentioned about um, the where from the islands where she grew up. Uh, she grew up. There is the community, so people easily get involved in other people's lives. In this community here, I guess more of us are secluded and minding our own business, so you don't easily jump into somebody's affair. Sometimes you can even notice the neglect, but you still don't want to get involved because it's somebody's family.
Would it also be that you don't want to get into trouble because sometimes trying to help you may get yourself into some big problems? Would it be so?
I mean, that's very possible, but if you're 100% that something horrible has happened to somebody, like, I don't know how you can sit with that. I know we're here and everybody's basically taught to stay in your home and take care of your family and mind your business. But, your community is your business, your
I like
neighbors,
that one.
you
Your
know,
community
yeah, it's
is
your
your
business.
business.
So, I mean, you get involved any way you possibly can, especially with the ones that are most vulnerable in our communities.
I read something from Statistics Canada. The data says that 60% of these abuse survivors are women. That means a lot of this senior abuse is directed towards women. Michelle, do you see that in your field that most of them, those abused, are women? And if so, why?
I have to say I haven't noticed that it's more women. I would say it's more dementia,
Okay.
probably, because again, it's just I think a lot of it is we don't live like Reverend Bev said, we don't live with extended family anymore, so it's me, and it's only me taking care of. And I think that the dementia plays a much different role in this, as far as, turning on the stove and walking away and letting the pot boil. You can get your house lit on fire only so many times before you're going to lose your patience with that.
Mhm.
So I think it's the fatigue factor.
Interesting. The same data says that 96% of the sexual assault were committed against women, and 65% of the homicide victims were also women. Have you noticed that? If you have, why do you think it's so?
I think um, with women in general, women are more likely to be abused in not just in the seniors case, but like all around generally. So it doesn't shock me to see the numbers, right, as they get older and older. Because at least when you're younger, you're more vocal. You can ask for help and you can reach out. But as they get older, it's not really shocking. It is also very um, it's overwhelming and it's heartbreaking that as women go through so much when they get to the point where they should be relaxed and they still have to face this kind of treatment from society. But again, I think it comes down to being able to protect each other, right? So we need to put systems in place where it is actually protecting them. And we need to do more than we're doing right now to make sure that the numbers, if not at all disappear, that it decreases, right?
Is it in our society here? Is it common? Is it expected? Is it um, expected that if you are in a community with somebody living on the same street, that you can regularly inquire? Let's say even they are living with their own family. Then maybe a mother is living with her child or so, but you see something. Is it expected that you can inquire and you know see to it that the right thing is being done for that person, or is you have to mind your business? You don't need to put your mouth into it if you recognize that something is going on.
I think, if you see something that's happening, depending on the relationship that you have with the whole family, um, in on my street, in my neighborhood, I didn't used to go out and talk to neighbors, but it's something that I do now. And so the
Wow.
people that I did connect, it's actually because of Fruitful Communities. I ended up getting out there in the communities and speaking to them. And so because of that, I've built some sort of
Connected with
connection with them. And so with that, I can, I have a phone number. I'll text every day, how you doing, how's everything. So I think that's okay if you build that connection with people. And so if you see something, then based on how you interact with them, you're more than likely, I mean, you should be more than able to ask
speak to
something.
it.
But if not, and you think the situation is dire and it's more dangerous, there are ways too that you can handle it, right? So you can alert the authorities quietly, right? If you really think this is really bad and it's a dangerous situation, you can, because they don't have to come out and say such and such a person said this. So you can alert the authorities or reach out to the appropriate people in the community that can handle it professionally and properly.
So on that note, what are some of the things that you can do as a third party? What are some of the things that we can do?
Okay, so with everything that I've been studying, it says when you notice something, first of all, we tend to want to get in there and we want to talk and we want to go grab people and get them out. You can't do that because you
Wow.
need to know the situation. You need to talk to the person first. Actually, before you even bring that up, you need permission. You need their permission
Wow.
to say, okay, yes, I'm willing to accept your help. Because if they don't want it, you can't help it. You can't inject yourself in there and say, I'm going to help you. Because at the end of the day, when the authorities come in, they have to be able to open up their mouth and say, hey, this is what's going on, that I really do need the help, right? So you have to give them their time because most of the time, this is the person that they know, they live with, they depend on their food, their medication, everything comes from this person. So it's not a very easy decision to make to get up and say, okay, I'm gonna go away from this person.
Mm.
So they have to come to a place where they're saying, okay, this is what I want. And then you step in. And so what you have to do once they give you the go ahead is you need to sit down and make an exit plan away from the family, right? Because you need to know what you're doing, because once they say yes, if you don't have a plan, then you're actually putting them in more
Wow.
danger than they were in before. So they need an exit plan. And if you commit to this, you have to commit to it. That means every time they call. So that's the thing, right? That I think that's why a lot of people want to stay back, because you have to make sure that you're available to really truly be there for them, because it is going to be hard on them. So they're going to be calling on you for everything. Are you ready for that? Right? So you have to, there are a number of things that you kind of have to study and put in place before you can even safely remove somebody from such a situation.
Interesting. Uh, Elder abuse is such a touchy, such a difficult topic because you don't expect people to abuse the elderly. But it happens. The prognosis is so bad because the mortality rate of an elderly person who's been abused or mistreated is higher than those who have not. It doesn't just affect them immediately, the long term also, it shortens their life. And so we got to be careful dealing with the elderly. And this topic has started. We've started some fire. For the next 4 weeks, we're going to talk about it. We're going to bring some of you back. We're going to discuss it more. But it's been an amazing time. Um, just having you with us. You are a wealth of knowledge, you are a wealth of understanding, and you've taught us a lot. Um, did we have a question from the social media? I think there was a question that popped up. Okay.
It is too small.
Yes, I know there's a question there, but I need to read it. Okay, but as I was saying, it's an area that we should all rise up and help, because not a person, not one organization, not one group, not one facility can do this. All of us, as you hear the sound of my voice, if we work together, because you could be at the receiving end, or maybe you are an abuser that you didn't know you were abusing an elderly person. As you heard this, maybe there'll be a change of heart, because we have to hold them well. We have to help them in this golden age of theirs. And as I told you, we had about over 11,000 people in Canada here alone who are over 100 years. I intend to grow over 120 years. So I need it. That's why I've started my journey, helping us to understand elder abuse. Now, this is the question. Senior abuse is predominantly noted in senior homes in the areas of physical abuse, hunger, poor administration of medicine, and financial fraud. How do we as a society look out for seniors? Michelle, if you can answer that question. The question again says senior abuse is predominantly noted in senior homes in the areas of physical abuse, hunger, poor administration of medicine, and financial fraud. How do we as a society look out for seniors?
We have a saying down here. I don't know if you guys use it too, but if you see something, say something. And I think can be as simple as that. We all have that little bit of feeling. You get that feeling, the fur goes up on the back of your neck. That's your intuition telling you. And again, saying something does no harm because it should be investigated and it may be found that it's not happening. And that's okay. But that's what we have to do. We have to see something, say something.
See something, you say something. Lorena.
And so, in terms of the senior homes, I believe that the seniors that goes in there and um, constantly have their families come in there and visit and check up on them, I feel like they're less likely to go through these kind of things sometimes. Because if the families are coming in, they're checking and they're making sure they're getting everything, it is hard because if they see it, they will mention it to someone. But if you put the seniors in a home and the families don't check up on them, that actually put them at risk and having anybody do whatever they want to them so they can take advantage of them. So what can we do? One thing is, yes, the professionals need to do better. They need to be properly trained to handle them, but also for their families to show up and make sure that their loved ones are properly being cared for. I know everybody's busy and life is busy, but there's still your mom and your dad or whoever it is you put in there. So you have to make the time. You have to, you know, pen them on the schedule them in so you can check up on them and make sure that they're being properly cared for.
Yeah, Michelle, there's a question for you, but before that question, I want to ask this question. And the question is, there are some facilities which are like first class facilities. Some are very poor. If I'm sending my loved one to a facility, how do I know which one is good and which one is poorly managed?
I will tell you, word of mouth spreads like wildfire. So if there's issues going on, it's word's going to get out. Ask your friends, ask your family, ask your parents' physician. Very frequently, physicians um, go into these facilities and they also know which is good. There are websites that have information, and you view and you tour and you see what they look like, and you ask, what are your staffing numbers? Because the more short-staffed you are, the more of the rush you're going to get. So, what are your staffing numbers?
Wow. Now I'll bring the question from your viewers to you. There's a question for you, Michelle. It says, I've heard and seen nurses in care homes taking pride in their poor treatment towards seniors, up to and including physical abuse. Is there a policy framework in place to report?
We are all mandatory reporters. It's the same thing as with children in schools. Teachers are mandatory reporters. We are all mandatory reporters. So if it is going on, it needs to be reported. And if you know and you don't report, you're equally as liable.
Wow.
That's interesting. My goodness. Time has gone so far and it's gone so
I
fast.
know, Pastor, you wanted to wrap up at this point, but
Yes.
there is one question, one area I wanted us to address
Okay.
before we go, and it's the area of resources. In Canada here, maybe Michelle can talk about US resources,
Mhm.
but in Canada here, what are the kind of resources available to support seniors?
Okay. So there are small foundations like mine. All of them do many different things so
What's
that
the
you
name of your
can reach out.
foundation again?
So my foundation is Independent Seniors Living.
Where can we
Yeah.
find you? Because I'm registering.
So it's actually a website. So if you search it up, independentseniorsliving.com, you'll be able to have us and see there and you can contact us. There's the district center of GTA for seniors. If you see anything you want to report it, you can. There's the seniors crisis access line. So there's a few places that you can go. In terms of seniors themselves directly, there isn't like a 24-hour line like I was saying before. So depending on the kind of abuse that they're facing, there's different types of resources that you can tap into to try to, solve that. And so, the Public Health Agency of Canada can give you information about seniors if that's what you're looking to, or you can reach out to a few of the professionals in the industry,
Like Reverend Bev.
like Reverend Bev, and trying to get information into helping.
We'll put some numbers. We'll let you give your numbers out very soon.
Definitely.
That those who want to reach out
Mhm.
for your services can
Okay.
reach out to you. But Michelle, in the our neighbors at the south, what are some of the resources that they can access?
All of the states have policies and reporting bureaus. We have the Bureau of Elderly Services here. Every state has one that you can report to. You can report to a trusted confidant. If there's somebody that you really trust, another family member or another staff member, if you're in a facility, um, they chat and they're willing to share it. So I would encourage them to go to somebody that they would trust to report the abuse.
Amazing. Whoa. Michelle McFadden from the United States of America, Reverend Beverly Henry, all the way from Mississauga, Ontario, and our own Mrs. Lorena Brown Mensah, all the way from God City, Brampton. Thank you so much. And we thank you, the audience, for staying to watch. Spread the news. This is us working together. Together, we will bring down this shame. Together, we will push back this elder abuse. If we rise up as a people, there is nothing we cannot do. Go out there, love an elder. And I want to thank you also, my beautiful wife, Pastor Susan, who has been, an advocate for the elderly as well. I don't know, because maybe she thinks I'm growing old, but that's just the way she thinks.
Just
But
to make sure I'm taking care
it
of
may not be right.
the elder in my life.
But I'm so pleased that we are doing this program. Tell somebody next week, the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday, we are coming back.
And then I will say that if you have any questions, you need any direction, you want somebody to talk to, you can send us an email, info@fruitfulhouse.com, or you can call 905-696-0050. Leave us a message, or somebody will pick up, who will reach out to you for support or direct you to the necessary resources.
There's a second email, which is seniorbees at fruitfulhouse.com as well. You can write to us. We are here to listen to you. We may not be able to do everything, but the little we can, we want to reach out and be of help.
Right. So in the next couple of weeks, next week, the following week, throughout October, actually, we are centering on our theme is old age matters. Old age matters. So everything we'll be doing for the entire month of October will be centered around old age. So tune in every Tuesday, 7 p.m. for Old Age Matters.
Old age matters because
because
old
it
age
matters.
matters.
That's correct.
Have a fantastic evening and shalom.
God bless you.